Even after more than a decade, some stories in Hollywood refuse to disappear. They do not simply end when the headlines stop printing or when cameras move on to the next scandal. Instead, they linger in the background, quietly growing more complicated with time. They become stories about love, choices, regret, resilience, and consequences. So let me ask you something from the very beginning. Can a relationship born in controversy ever truly escape the shadow of how it started? Or does the past always remain waiting, silent, patient, ready to return when least expected? The story of LeAnn Rimes and Cibrian has never been just celebrity gossip. It is far more layered than that. It began with fame, collided with scandal, survived public outrage, and somehow transformed into a marriage that has now lasted well over 15 years. And now, after years of carefully measured statements and selective silence, Rimes has spoken in a way that feels strikingly different. More reflective. More vulnerable. Perhaps more honest than ever before. So what changed? And why does this story still capture attention all these years later? A star who grew up before she was ready. Long before controversy followed her name, LeAnn Rimes was known for something entirely different: extraordinary talent. She was not just another young singer with promise. She was a phenomenon. At only 13 years old, she released Blue, a record that immediately separated her from nearly everyone else in music. Her voice carried maturity far beyond her age. Audiences were stunned. Critics praised her. Awards came quickly. Sales climbed into the millions. Soon, she became the youngest Grammy winner in history. From the outside, it looked like the dream every young artist imagines. But here is the question few people ask when success arrives that early. What happens when the world celebrates you before you have even discovered who you are? While fans saw glamour and applause, her private reality was more complex. Fame brought pressure. Business conflicts emerged. Even legal disputes with her own father entered public view while she was still a teenager. Instead of growing up slowly and privately, she was forced to mature under bright lights. Every decision mattered. Every mistake risked becoming news. By the time she reached 19, she made a choice many believed represented stability. She married Dean Shearmut. To outsiders, he seemed like the perfect contrast to celebrity chaos: steady, grounded, supportive. Their relationship appeared calm and wholesome. For a young woman whose life had been anything but normal, marriage may have looked like safety. But appearances can be misleading. Behind the scenes were touring schedules, career demands, emotional strain, and the exhausting pressure of maintaining an image. Which raises another uncomfortable question. Can any relationship thrive when one person has never been allowed a normal life? A different road to Hollywood. At the same time, Cibrian was building a career through a very different route. He was not a child star. He did not experience explosive overnight fame. Instead, he built steadily through television roles, consistent work, and industry persistence. In a business known for instability, he represented reliability. He was also married to Brandi Glanville, and together they had children. His life, at least publicly, appeared structured and settled. Family life gave the impression of roots. Career life provided momentum. Compared with Rimes, their worlds seemed completely different. She was shaped by early fame and constant scrutiny. He appeared to be living a more traditional adult life. Two separate paths. Two different identities. Two people who, by all appearances, should never have become part of the same life-changing story. And yet, they were moving toward exactly that. The moment everything shifted. In 2008, their worlds collided on the set of a television movie. At first, it was nothing remarkable. Actors meet constantly. Co-stars spend long hours together. Emotional scenes create artificial intimacy. Productions begin and end every day without altering anyone's personal life. So why was this different? How often do the biggest turning points in life begin in places that seem completely ordinary? Both were married. Both had responsibilities waiting at home. Both understood the risks of crossing boundaries. And yet, somewhere between scenes, conversations, and shared time, something changed. Chemistry became attachment. Attachment became secrecy. Secrecy became danger. By early 2009, rumors began circulating. At first they were whispers, the kind Hollywood often ignores. Then the whispers grew louder. And then came the photographs. Not speculation. Not anonymous claims. Proof. The story did not simply emerge, it detonated. When private choices become public punishment. Within days, the scandal was everywhere. Entertainment shows discussed it. Magazines analyzed it. Comment sections exploded with judgment. People who knew none of them personally spoke with certainty about their character. And here is where the story becomes revealing, not just about celebrities, but about society itself. The backlash was not equal. Rimes received intense criticism, relentless headlines, moral condemnation, harsh labels. Cibrian faced criticism too, but not with the same force or permanence. Why does public outrage so often divide itself unevenly? Why are two people in the same scandal sometimes judged by entirely different standards? The affair quickly became larger than the people involved. It symbolized betrayal, broken vows, family disruption, moral failure. Apologies followed. Statements were released. Regret was expressed. But once a story becomes public spectacle, apologies rarely end it. The damage had already spread too far. The fallout no one escapes. By 2010, both marriages had officially ended. Two households were permanently changed. Children were involved. Families had to rebuild under public attention. And that raises another difficult question. When relationships collapse in front of the world, is closure even possible? For many celebrities, scandal fades once the news cycle moves on. But this was different. The emotional consequences continued long after headlines cooled. There were custody arrangements, co-parenting tensions, emotional wounds, and years of public commentary. Every appearance together was analyzed. Every quote was dissected. Every silence was interpreted. Instead of beginning their relationship in joy, Rimes and Cibrian began it under siege. Choosing to stay. Many predicted they would never last. Some assumed guilt would destroy them. Others believed public pressure would eventually break them apart. In 2011, they married. For supporters, it was proof they were serious. For critics, it was another chapter in a story they never accepted. But time creates truths that opinions cannot erase. Year after year, they remained together. They celebrated anniversaries, built routines, navigated blended family challenges, continued careers, faced criticism, endured tabloid narratives. And still, they stayed. Which leads to an interesting question. Is longevity proof of love, or simply proof of endurance? Perhaps it is both. The cost of being the villain. Over the years, Rimes spoke openly at times about the emotional toll the scandal took on her mental health. Being publicly hated can sound abstract until you imagine living it daily. Online attacks, media mockery, constant reminders of your worst mistake. A reputation frozen in one chapter of life. For many people, private mistakes remain private. They happen, hurt others, and are handled quietly. But celebrities often experience something harsher, punishment with an audience. Rimes has described feeling overwhelmed, anxious, and deeply affected by the intensity of public reaction. And maybe that reveals something important. How long should a person be defined by one period of their life? Months? Years? Forever? The complexity of growth. One reason this story still fascinates people is because it refuses to stay simple. If it were only scandal, it would have faded. If it were only romance, it would not matter. Instead, it became a complicated human story about flawed people making painful choices and then trying to live with the consequences. There is no version of this story where everyone wins. There was hurt. There was betrayal. There were families affected. And yet there was also something else. Persistence. Many relationships begin beautifully and end quickly. This one began badly and endured. What are people supposed to do with that contradiction? Why her new honesty matters. Now, years later, Rimes appears to be speaking with less defensiveness and more perspective. That matters because time often changes the language of truth. When events are fresh, people protect themselves. They minimize. They justify. They avoid. But distance can create clarity. Instead of trying to rewrite the past, she seems more willing to acknowledge pain, mistakes, and emotional complexity. That does not erase what happened. It does not undo damage. But it may signal something rare in celebrity culture: genuine reflection. And perhaps that is why audiences are paying attention again. Not because they want old drama, but because people are drawn to stories of accountability, healing, and survival. What this story really asks us. Maybe the real reason this Hollywood chapter still lingers is because it mirrors questions ordinary people face too. Can love begin in the wrong way and still become real? Can people grow after hurting others? Can trust ever be rebuilt once broken? Can the public forgive what private people often forgive every day? There are no clean answers. Some will always see this story as betrayal that should never be romanticized. Others will see two imperfect people who made painful mistakes and then built a lasting life together. Both views contain truth. Today, after more than 15 years of marriage, LeAnn Rimes and Cibrian remain together, something many people once believed would never happen. At the time their relationship became public, predictions were immediate and harsh. Many assumed it would collapse under pressure, public judgment, and the weight of how it began. To some, the ending already seemed written before the first chapter had fully unfolded. But time has a way of disrupting certainty. Their survival as a couple does not erase the controversy that surrounded them. It does not rewrite the pain others experienced. It does not magically turn a difficult beginning into a fairy tale. What it does do, however, is make the story far more complicated than many expected. And complicated truths are often harder for people to accept than simple scandals. Because scandals are easy to process. They offer clear villains, clear victims, and clear endings. They allow the public to decide quickly who was wrong and who was right. But life rarely stays inside those neat boundaries. So after all these years, perhaps the real question is no longer whether their relationship should have survived. Perhaps the deeper question is this: when people make mistakes, are they forever trapped inside that moment? Or are they allowed to become something more than the worst chapter of their lives? For Brandi Glanville, the wounds were never abstract. They were personal, immediate, and deeply painful. She spoke openly about humiliation, heartbreak, and the sense that her life had spun beyond her control. Her pain became part of the public narrative, ensuring that this story was never just about two people falling in love under controversial circumstances. It became a story about betrayal, loss, public shame, and emotional fallout. And because of that, the public did not move on quickly. Instead, the story expanded. Interviews kept coming. Headlines returned. Books were written. Television discussions revived old wounds. Every few years, it seemed the past reappeared once more, refusing to remain buried. Why are some celebrity stories forgotten in months, while others live for decades? Perhaps because certain stories touch something deeper than gossip. They force people to confront uncomfortable realities about marriage, forgiveness, loyalty, and human weakness. From scandal to commitment. And yet, while many continued debating the past, something unexpected happened. Instead of burning out, LeAnn Rimes and Cibrian stayed together. Year after year. Then in 2011, they married quietly. No oversized spectacle. No dramatic campaign to reshape public opinion. No grand attempt to package their union as a glamorous event. Just a wedding. Just a choice. And perhaps that simplicity was meaningful. Because after years of noise, maybe the only thing left that mattered was whether they intended to build something real. That decision raises another question. What does it truly take to build something lasting after starting in chaos? Can trust grow where controversy once existed? Can stability emerge after emotional wreckage? Can two people create peace when their foundation was once defined by conflict? Those are not celebrity questions. They are human questions. Reinvention beyond headlines. For LeAnn Rimes, the years that followed were not simply about returning to the image she once had. They were about evolution. Her music became more reflective, more vulnerable, less concerned with appearances and more concerned with emotional truth. Listeners noticed themes of healing, self-awareness, struggle, and resilience. Artists often reveal their deepest transformations through their work. Was her music a response to criticism? Was it an attempt to process pain? Was it a declaration that identity can survive scandal? Only she fully knows. For Eddie Cibrian, life moved forward in a steadier direction. His career continued with television roles and entertainment work, but much of his public image gradually shifted toward family life and consistency rather than controversy. That change did not happen overnight. Reputations rarely do, living under a permanent spotlight. Yet even as the years passed, one reality never disappeared. The origin story followed them. Every anniversary article referenced it. Every interview risked reopening it. Every online discussion could revive judgments from more than a decade earlier. This is one of the defining features of modern fame. The internet remembers everything. So how do you move forward when strangers refuse to let your past stay in the past? How do you heal when old headlines can be rediscovered in seconds? How do you create a normal marriage under abnormal scrutiny? According to comments they shared over time, the answer involved effort, therapy, communication, hard conversations, intentional work, a repeated choice to continue. That may sound simple, but it is not. Many relationships fail even without public pressure, tabloid attention, or social media commentary. To attempt repair while millions hold opinions from the outside creates a very different challenge. They were not trying to erase what happened. They were trying to live beyond it. And perhaps that is harder. Because erasing is fantasy. Living with consequences is reality. Blended family, real emotions. Another layer of complexity centered around family. Eddie Cibrian's children remained central to his life, meaning that any long-term future required navigating blended family dynamics with care. That alone can be challenging in private life. Different schedules. Different households. Emotional sensitivities. Boundaries. New roles. Old wounds. Loyalty conflicts. Adjustment periods. Now imagine all of that while the world comments from the sidelines. Can families truly heal when the event that disrupted them remains public conversation? Can children feel protected when adults around them are being judged publicly? Can co-parenting succeed when media narratives keep reopening the past? These are difficult realities many blended families face, even without celebrity status. Over time, by many appearances, things stabilized. Not perfectly, not magically, but gradually. And perhaps gradual progress is more believable than dramatic transformation. The media frenzy faded. The outrage cooled. The constant headlines slowed. But they never vanished entirely. Instead, attention changed shape. Outrage became curiosity. Curiosity became observation. Observation became a strange kind of long-term fascination. How did they last this long? What do they know that others don't? Were critics wrong from the beginning? Or did endurance itself become the answer? 15 years later. Still complicated. Now we arrive at the present. More than 15 years of marriage. A milestone many once said would never happen. For countless couples, 15 years is significant. It represents shared seasons of life, private struggles, changing identities, and the quiet accumulation of ordinary commitment. For them, it also represents surviving extraordinary public history. But instead of a clean anniversary celebration, another emotional layer appeared. In April 2026, LeAnn Rimes shared a message that felt deeply personal yet intentionally restrained. She referenced heart-wrenching things taking place within the family. No details. No names. No timeline. No explanation. Just enough to create concern and curiosity. And silence can sometimes say more than disclosure. When someone chooses careful words instead of full details, what does that mean? Is it privacy, protection, respect for others involved? An attempt to process pain before speaking publicly? Maybe all of the above. The couple reportedly stepped away briefly, taking time together, not necessarily as luxury, but as pause. A reset. A breath between pressures. Her words suggested emotional contradiction, tears alongside gratitude, heaviness beside laughter, uncertainty mixed with appreciation. That combination feels familiar to many people. Because real life often contains conflicting emotions at the same time. You can be grateful and hurting. You can love someone and feel exhausted. You can remain committed while facing hardship. You can celebrate a milestone while quietly carrying burdens no one else sees. What wasn't said? Perhaps the most powerful part of that moment is what remains unknown. Modern culture often expects total access, immediate explanations, personal details delivered instantly to strangers. But not every pain is public property. Not every family challenge should become entertainment. Not every struggle needs names attached to it. And yet, even without specifics, one message was clear. She emphasized continuation. Not endings. Not collapse. Not finality. But movement forward. Beginnings after 15 years. That phrase alone carries weight. Because beginnings are usually associated with youth, excitement, and the early stage of romance. But maybe mature love requires many beginnings. Beginnings after betrayal. Beginnings after public judgment. Beginnings after burnout. Beginnings after grief. Beginnings after seasons that almost break you. Could that be the secret many relationships miss? Not finding one perfect love story, but learning how to begin again with the same person. What does this story really mean? At its core, this is not simply celebrity news. It is a story about choices, about consequences, about image versus reality, about whether people can evolve after failure, about whether love can survive the damage caused by how it began. Some will always view their marriage through the lens of the original scandal. For them, the beginning defines everything that followed. Others may see a different lesson, that imperfect people can still build something lasting. Both perspectives contain truth. Because beginnings matter. But so does what people do afterward. The past shapes the future. But it does not always fully control it. So let's return to the central questions. Can a relationship born in controversy ever truly move beyond it? Or does the past quietly echo through every year that follows? Can endurance redeem a broken start? Or does duration simply make the story longer? Can forgiveness heal what judgment never could? There are no easy answers. And perhaps that is why this story still holds attention after so many years. It resists simplicity. The human reflection. Maybe the reason people remain fascinated has less to do with fame and more to do with recognition. Because many people know what it means to regret choices. Many know what it means to be judged for one season of life. Many know the burden of trying to become better while others remember only who you used to be. Many know the struggle of holding a relationship together when outsiders see only fragments. In that sense, this story reflects something universal. Not celebrity glamour. Not tabloid drama. But the uncomfortable truth that people are messy. Love is messy. Growth is messy. And second chances are rarely neat. Final thought. 15 years later, their story is still unfinished. Still changing. Still debated. Still emotionally layered. Still asking difficult questions without offering easy conclusions. Maybe that is why people continue watching. Because deep down, everyone wonders whether mistakes define us forever, or whether persistence can create a new chapter. Time does not erase history. It transforms it. Sometimes gently. Sometimes painfully. Sometimes in ways no one predicted. And sometimes what survives is not perfection, not innocence, and not a fairy tale. Sometimes what survives is simply two people who kept choosing not to quit. So now I'll leave you with one final question. Do relationships like this prove that love can overcome almost anything? Or do they simply reveal how far people are willing to go to hold on when letting go would be easier? What do you think?